What is going on, TV land? Thralls of Metal back again. I'm Shredlord.
Necrotic Nick.
And we are here to bring you yet another excellent album review. And this time, we are bringing you black metal legends Immortal's brand new album, War Against All.
Very dramatic lead-in. Nice.
Thank you.
So this came out on the 26th of May on Nuclear Blast Records. It's been formed in 1991 in Norway. They were part of the giant second wave black metal movement, Mayhem, Dark Throne, all those fucking kick-ass bands. But they were kind of the quiet ones. Like, they didn't fucking murder anyone or burn down a single church, which, I don't know, might make them posers in certain circles, but I don't think so.
No, I definitely, I don't think so either. Just because they didn't stray onto that path doesn't makes them losers. It probably makes them non-felons.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. Just stay away from the extracurriculars there. This is their 10th album overall and second one since the departure of Abath, who went on to do his solo albums, which, the first two were pretty good. We're not talking about that last one. But when Immortal came back with just Demonaz pretty much at the helm, being the vocalist and primary songwriter, Northern Chaos Gods absolutely ripped. I really wasn't sure. There's a little bit of uncertainty about it without Abath in the band, but that album was absolutely killer. And I think Demonaz has pretty much kind of reinvigorated the Immortal brand with that one. So we were very stoked to go over this one, and this was a big gateway band for both of us in terms of black metal. I got Sons of Northern Darkness pretty much because I was looking for black metal, and those three characters on the front of that cover had to be black metal. Either that or the most Conan-inspired pandas I've ever fucking seen.
Conan pandas, yes! Crom laughs at your silly war paint.
This bamboo is delicious.
So what did we think about this album? Was it going to be as good as the one previous? Let's find out. It starts off with the title track, basically, War Against All, and I believe that is the first single that they released?
Yep.
Yeah, and right from the get-go, the one thing I appreciate about this album right away is there's no long intro, there's no build-up. Literally, when you press play, boom, right into the chaos.
Yeah, right into blast beats, gnarly riffs, it's cold and icy. Demonaz's vocals are definitely different than Abath. Like, there's part of me that still kind of misses his kind of creepy goblin vocals. Like, I love them, they were so gloriously over the top, it just reminded me of what the Wishmaster sound like from all those Wishmaster movies. But Demonaz's voice is a little bit more like raw and kind of like very cold sounding, which is a very appropriate thing for this band. But the first two tracks in here, honestly, really just explode. Like, they're faster, they're a little bit thrashy. The riff work on Thunders of Darkness is kind of interesting because it alternates between kind of what you expect from Immortal with like the more icy cold kind of anthemic riffs, but there's like some more death metal sort of palm muted crawls in there, kind of just peppered in there. The song is overall intense, as is the title track, and this opens with authority. Again, no real build-up, it just detonates. And then as the album goes on, like, it kind of expands the sound a little bit more, and a lot of this kind of remind me of Demonaz's solo album, which is interesting because he worked with Icedale again, who was also on that album. He did bass in here as well as production. And he also got Ivor Sandoy, I think that's how you say his name, probably not. He is the current drummer of Enslaved, and he also did the mastering on here. And the album sounds, well, pretty solid. Like, it's pretty, polished, I guess, for the sound.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty polished. Definitely the one word, I guess, or verb I could use to describe this album is it comes across with a very epic vibe.
Yes.
Everything is very epic, very triumphant sounding almost. The one thing that I think starts to happen, though, as the album goes on is it becomes all about the epicness as opposed to the first few tracks, namely War Against All, Thunders of Darkness, and War God. They had a little bit more of that black metal evilness, a little bit more energy, a little more aggression in them. Then as you start to get to tracks like No Sun and Return to Cold, you start seeing the epicness and the mid-tempo stuff really just kind of take over throughout the rest of the album.
Yeah, I will say that Northern Chaos Gods definitely had more urgency and more darkness to it. Like, this is, again, that more triumphant, epic feel, but still, done very heavily. Like, No Sun, I think, is an exceptional track. I love the build-up, the really cool, icy cold, distant melodies, and it just has, some solid hooks that probably kind of hark back more to, classic heavy metal, like a blackened Judas Priest kind of worked its way in there to kind of give you that extra oomph. It's kind of an interesting setup because it leads in with probably the most traditional sounding black metal on there. Like you have the cold tremolos, there's a really cool melody on top of that, blast beats, and then it just sort of navigates its way into this sort of mid-tempo, anthemic, sort of like driving song. And then as it goes on, it kind of just keeps ebbing and flowing, you know, kind of building up these big epic moments. You have some clean breaks in there, kind of calm you down, build it up. And then it bookends the blast beats at the end with a very odd transition. But honestly, like that song really works in terms of the epic vibe on here. That and the monstrous instrumental Nordlandir, that might be how you say that. Probably not.
He gave it his best chance. If anyone has a problem with it, kiss our ass.
Solid C+ effort there. But it's absolutely awesome. It is a 7 minute and 11 second instrumental. And honestly, I think without the vocals, this sounds entirely epic. Like it's icy cold, great stomping anthemic melodies. It feels like a black metal jam session.
Yeah, it was very enjoyable to listen to. And while there weren't that many parts as far as the song construction goes, it was nice to just kind of hear. Nick and I were having a nice conversation about this album while enjoying this song. So it's almost like it was perfect background music. I almost felt like I needed to paint my face and try to go stab somebody.
Probably wear some armor too. Like that feels like a very like I need to wear armor song.
Always use protection.
Always.
Even if it's chainmail. So as we were listening to this album, the third track is War God, and it starts out with this awesome riff actually. However, as I was listening to it, Nick was able to listen to this album before I was, and he goes, "Hey man, does that sound like anything familiar to you?" And I was like, "Yeah, it does, but I can't put my finger on it." He goes, "I want you to think about Tyrants." And I go, "Holy shit, you're right, man." Like it's like
really close.
Yeah, it's beyond close. I mean, granted, you're ripping off yourself. It's kind of like when, you know, they tried to sue John Fogerty for sounding like himself. I mean, no griping, no bitching, but I was like, man, that sounds so familiar. However, even though it is kind of familiar and heavily borrowed, it's still a great fucking riff to use for this song. War God is a very, very cool track.
You know, it finally slows down the pace and kind of brings down like this big stomping, sinister vibe. You know, I mean, Tyrants is a badass track. I know a lot of people are kind of on Sons of Northern Darkness, but I think that is an absolute standout on that album. And, you know, it's familiar. It feels maybe a little recycled. Like the riff progression is just slightly different, but it's more or less the pace of it. It kind of has that same stomping rhythm, and how the riff is played is very similar, but it does segue into different parts on there. But in terms of stuff sounding similar, that was kind of an issue on here too, because after a while, the riffs really start kind of running together, and that is mainly because this sort of epicness really kind of takes over. One of the things that I love about Immortal is they're able to have these cool epic songs, but blend in with more dark, sinister melodies to kind of give it at least, you know, that blackened edge. This, I mean, honestly, sometimes the vocals are the only things that really keep it kind of more dark and sinister, because the riffs get, again, very triumphant kind of all throughout here, like Return to Cold, Nordlandir, the song Immortal. Granted, it has some really icy cold riffs and blast beats. Like, it really kind of favors this more epic, triumphant vibe all over, and all the way down to the last track, which, God, I still have no idea. Blashrick? I'm not entirely sure how to say that word. I know it's like a thing that's all over their fucking albums, and I've never learned how to say that properly, but Blashrick My Throne, it's kind of the same thing as like all the other epic tracks.
Yeah, I have to agree, as it was almost like a tease almost to include so much of that in the front of the album. It was so front loaded with a lot of the more heavy, aggressive, cold kind of riffing, and then immediately the rest of the album just seems to focus around this mid-tempo, triumphant, epic vibe. Did it work? Yes. However, by track 8, it's getting a little bit to the point where I feel like I've heard a lot of this before, and I was ready for maybe some variety within that.
I mean, Immortal has pulled influences from, you know, death metal and thrash metal before, and yeah, black metal is their main wheelhouse, but maybe some additional spices in here would have been nice. And, you know, this kind of comes down to having like one primary songwriter this time. There's no one really to bounce ideas off as much in terms of like a permanent band member. And one of my main issues with the last track is if the rest of this album hadn't been so focused on this epic vibe, I think this song would have stood out more as a grand epic closer. Like this is the one that kind of ties in their, whole mythical world that Immortal, talks about all the time. And yet the song really doesn't get a chance to shine because other songs shined in almost the exact same way.
However, with that being said, Immortal is pretty much down to one member, and when you're one guy handling everything, there's nobody really for any kind of a checks and balances. So basically, he had free reign on this, and when you're the only one making decisions, sometimes you're going to make decisions that gel with people, sometimes you don't. It did not affect the quality of the music.
No.
The music is great quality, but definitely variety is what we were lacking on this for sure. What was given to us was great, but if it could have injected a little bit more of that evilness, of a little bit more of that token Immortal sound of the black metal part of their sound into this, I think it could have taken this album up another notch for sure.
Dunez is a solid writer, solid guitarist, and, his comfort zone, which is definitely on here, while it does get repetitive, is still a pretty awesome comfort zone. I just think, some things kind of carried on a little too long when they could have changed it up and maybe spiced up with something just a little bit different, maybe a little bit more sinister. But, overall, still did a solid job on here. And, I'm just glad Immortal's back and fucking put out albums again. Because it was a little quiet there for a while. Abath wasn't quiet, but...
He never is, but that's neither here nor there. He's, I love him.
I love him too.
I love him to death. He is one of my favorites. And yeah, he falls face first off the stage drunk sometimes, but
that Chuck and the guitar incident. Oh.
In the words of Ray from Trailer Park Boys, what's drunk anyway? What's drunk? What's drunk, really? But I digress. And now that I've digressed, I guess I'm just going to get right down to brass tacks here. I'm going to give this album a 3.5. I was very excited for a new Immortal album. It has been quite some time, and I am not disappointed. Would I have liked to hear different things or more things included in this album? Absolutely. In my mind, I would say, and we were just discussing this, Immortal is easily one of my top 3 favorite black metal bands of all time, and so they're always going to have a fan in me. I'm a fan of this album. However, in the next release, if I can get a little bit more of that evilness or maybe add somebody else to the writing process to give it a little bit more, I hate using the term variety, but a couple extra colors as opposed to just one person making all the decisions.
A lot of blue and white in their palette.
And black.
And black.
Yeah, blue, black, and white. Yeah. And those are all good colors. So this is a great album. I will listen to it again. I did enjoy it. However, if I'm being honest, I wish the back half of this album had a little bit more balls like the front half of this album did.
I am going to go with a 3. I do enjoy this album. I do think my opinion of it might be slightly different if Northern Chaos Gods hadn't been such a banger. Generally when an album follows, such a much lauded, kind of comeback album, the next one is like, all right, let's see if it wasn't a flash in the pan. And I don't think it was, but this one doesn't hit nearly on all the levels that Northern Chaos Gods did. I still think it's really well done. There's lots of good melodies in here. The epic vibe is really good. I just think it kind of encompasses too much of this. But in terms of songwriting, they're very straightforward. They're very riff-driven, very melody-driven. I like the heavy metal nods, especially on the instrumental, which is possibly one of my favorite tracks on here. No Sun is possibly the big one, though. I really enjoyed that song. I think very well written, lots of cool dynamics. This is a good Immortal album. I don't think it, as good as some of the absolute classics, but few things are. At the Heart of Winter, that's borderline.
Nothing will beat that.
Borderline untouchable in my mind. But this is still solid. I urge you to check out. Again, if you're a big fan of, Immortal or Satyricon or any of the second wave stuff, this definitely still has that energy, especially if you like Demoness's solo album. I think it's pretty damn close to that too. But yeah, check it out. Immortal's back, and I'm pretty fucking happy about that.
So, if you like what you saw here, hit the like. If you're not subscribed to our wonderful community, come on, join us, won't you?
We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our store is there, as well as our Patreon link. We are eventually going to load up on stuff in the store. We have some designs. We're just kind of working out the kinks and fine-tuning and all that shit. That generally takes a while. but we will have some stuff soon. And we also have a giveaway going on for when we eventually hit 15,000 subscribers. I'm going to give away a stack of 10 CDs to some rabid metalhead out there. All you have to do is comment on the video, link down below. It's also playing automatically on our channel. And once we hit the number, I will make the announcement. And yeah, there will also be a fuckload of thank yous with that because thank you guys.
Like, you're the best.
It's absolutely amazing we actually get to do this. Never in my wildest dreams did I think we'd ever hit 15,000 subscribers. But honestly, when we hit 1,000 subscribers, like, wow, that's well above our pay grade, I think.
The only reason I started this channel was with Nick, or joined this channel with Nick, I should say, is to eventually see Noonan get tased.
Yeah.
That's really all I'm about here. I just want to see John writhing in pain due to a stun gun.
Could be his origin story, like he develops electrical powers.
I mean, that'd be dope.
No, that'd be terrible because he's coming after you.
No, I mean, he'd be mad at all of us. Let's be honest. He'd be mad at all of us.
Mad at you.
But we could talk him down by saying, but look, now you've got inhuman powers, so was it really all that bad? And while he cries and tells us, yes, we can at least try to get him to take solace in that.
Yeah, don't touch him, though, because he's going to
he's going to be probably fried. Yes, yeah.
But anyway, thank you all so much for all your support, and we will catch you later.